And we are live. How's it going, everybody? Welcome once again to our amazing conference today. And this is the first panel of the evening, morning, whatever it may be for you, paving the way to STEAM using media to inspire the next generation. Moderated by me, I am Ron Sparkman. You may know me as the Space Dude. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief at Stardom, and of course, the chief curiosity correspondent for the Space Foundation. And today we have an incredible group of folks to talk to about this particular topic. And the first person that we have on the panel today, Kellie Gerardi, is an aerospace professional and science communicator. We also have Diana Alsindy, known as the Arabian Stargazer. Dr. Chris Ferrie, University of Technology in Sydney, associate professor and author. And Shelli Brunswick, chief operating officer of the Space Foundation. And Dr. Reut Abramovich, the Ramon Doctor of Philosophy at DSASC. So you can tell everybody what that is if you want to, Reut, because I don't know what all that stands for. So we're so glad to have you all on today. And this is a wonderful topic. I understand completely, Diana. So this is a wonderful topic. Kellie, I want to start with you first. What drives you to devote so much time towards suborbital flight and getting more people involved? Obviously Project Possum is a big piece of that we're both involved in. So I'm sure that has a bit to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me. I love talking about science communication. I think suborbital spaceflight to me has always represented our biggest opportunity to democratize access to space, right? When you think about the fact that, we have less than 1,000 humans who have ever been to space in the entire history of humanity, and you think about the capability of suborbital spaceflight to open up access to space for civilians, for researchers, for students, yes, for tourists, right? One company in their first or second or third year of commercial operations can single-handedly double the amount of humans who have ever been to space. So that's sort of the value proposition that I like to look at when I think about how we can really open the fire hose on access to space and democratize it and ensure that, this future for all of us, space is our collective past and future as a species, and we need to enable more access to it for a broader slice of humanity. So I think, long answer short, that's something that's really driven me to invest in that specific area.
And one of the ways that you've kind of utilized this is through social media, like so many people on our panel today. And you've written a new book. So can you tell us a little bit about what your goal with writing Not Necessarily Rocket Science was and how that's connecting people?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'll share with everyone my deepest, darkest secret, which is that I have a film degree, right? I don't come from a traditional STEM background. I discovered, unfortunately, after college that my big passion was space, and armed with a liberal arts degree, I was like, okay, how in the world do I contribute to, the final frontier, the world's most exciting industry? And I had to carve my own path. I felt like I really needed to prove that I could belong and access this industry and then create value inside of it. And so I wrote Not Necessarily Rocket Science as a way to share that path for other people and to show that, I think that the space age, much like the Renaissance, was a broader cultural movement. It wasn't just art, right? You saw cultural innovation happening across science, philosophy, even warfare, medicine, science, right? So too does the space age have a broader cultural impact. It's not just engineering, and our next giant leap will require the talents of artists, engineers, and everyone in between. So I wrote the book to share a little bit of my journey in this industry and to show other people that, there is a place for all different skill sets.
I agree with you completely, DJ. So, I'm fortunate that there was a place for me, and there really is. It doesn't matter what you do or where you've come from. We need everybody for the space industry, and that's what makes it so important. So the next thing I want to go to is Diana. You've been doing some incredible work for the last few years, reaching out to not just English-speaking but Arabic-speaking groups through the Arabian Stargazer. So I want to talk a little bit about that and just how quickly that exploded. It was pretty much, a little less than a year, 100,000 followers on just Instagram alone. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of that to you, how that got started, and how you're utilizing that to connect people.
Yeah, it's very nice to be here and seeing familiar faces. Thank you for having me. The Arabian Stargazer, if the people who are watching are not familiar, it's a bilingual science communication platform where we talk about science and specifically space and the importance of it, as well as sharing some tips and tricks that I use that I wished I knew when I was in college throughout my career. I think the reason why it reached a lot of attention at the beginning, because it's kind of a neglected career and industry in that region. A lot of people who are interested in space and science didn't really have someone speaking about that in a fun, short passion. It was, you have to read a scientific journal in order to learn a few things, and there wasn't really a lot of access and opportunities in that area. So I noticed that there's a gap in science communication in Arabic. I researched YouTube and a lot of platforms about people who are speaking about science and space and sharing their experience, and unfortunately that didn't exist. So when I created the Arabian Stargazer, it was kind of coming from the idea that you should be excited about science. It's not intimidating. A lot of people in the Middle East and everywhere, honestly, in the world has the idea that you have to be very smart, a genius in math. You have to go to space to be part of space, which is not the case. I'm an engineer. I've worked in propulsion for the past 7 years, and I don't necessarily wear a spacesuit when I go to work. And that's often kind of the impression behind my job. So just trying to fill in that gap, and I've seen amazing engagement. Many people are really interested in this, and I get messages of people who say, because of the Arabian Stargazer, now I'm messaging you from my dorm in Stanford, and I'm originally from Egypt. I never thought I would be here with that, knowing that I actually can do this. There are scholarships and there are things that I could do to be a better scientist or engineer. So that's just kind of in a nutshell.
And you have done incredible work over the last few years, and I know that you have a big dream one day. So can you tell us, if there was one STEAM project that you could magically fund for students in the Middle East, what would it be and why? Have you ever thought, maybe you've thought about this before?
You know the answer to that. So,
I do.
My ultimate passion is to build multiple science camps across the Middle East and hopefully expand to the world. That would be just teaching them how to do simply programming and how to make a presentation, building a satellite. One of my most memorable memories is being in college, leading a team of students who are working on a 6U CubeSat that is going to space, and I was part of a NASA competition. I would never be excited about space without that opportunity. SEDS, it's called SEDS, Students for Exploration and Development of Space. And from then I realized that just school and my degree is not going to make me a unique engineer, or is going to teach me tangible skill sets. So I want to kind of create the same experience in the Middle East, create competitions, and we would teach them everything they need to know about being an engineer in a non-traditional way, not a textbook kind of path.
And I mean, so everybody on here is communicating to people in different ways, but Chris, yours is a different audience. So you want to tell us a little bit about why you decided the group that you wanted to speak to in the awesome work that you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it was because I had kids of my own. I wouldn't even have been aware of the existence of children's books had I not had children of my own. And, you know, when you look at the children's literature, at least maybe 6 years ago, you would find that there wasn't a lot of science books, certainly not for babies. And I mean, if you've never interacted with babies and you don't have babies, you won't know that baby books come in these kind of hard cardboard, thick style books, and there was no science books. There's all ABCs and animals and these sorts of things. And I thought, wow, there should really be some science books for this age group. And I decided, hey, I'll give it a go. I'll try it on my own, and I did, and it seems to have stuck. Yeah,
it's a little popular. So, what's the most complicated thing you've ever tried to explain to a baby?
Okay, well, surprisingly the most popular book is Quantum Physics for Babies. The publisher told me they waited so long to contact me about it because I had originally self-published it because it should never work. That was their research. So yeah, so it's quantum physics. Full disclosure, it's for the parents. It's not for the kids. There's no test for the infants at the end.
So obviously these things are really kind of blown up. Maybe it wasn't something that you were expecting. As you mentioned, they were kind of telling you, well, we're not exactly sure if this is going to work. So how have you been able to reach out and use this in different ways, say like utilize YouTube videos in general in a way to inspire the next generation with these really, if you can, I think it was Einstein that said, if you can't break it down and explain it to somebody on a level that they understand it, then you don't understand it. And trying to attempt to do that with quantum physics, with astrophysics, is just one of those things that if you can do that with, you know, the parents more so than the children, then you know that you've done your job right. So what are the ways are you kind of utilizing this, the skill set that you have to connect with folks?
Yeah, it's really difficult, to be honest. So if you think about the typical audiences on Instagram, you know, you certainly have, as the great scientific communicators in this panel have shown, you know, audiences for science, but they typically don't coincide with audiences that are buying children's books and you know, baby, you know, merchandise, right? So my following on social media is quite small because my audience is the audience that would typically follow people that are selling more traditional stuff for kids. So I think I find it very difficult to connect, to find even find the people that have my books online. I'm assuming maybe many of them, you know, aren't on social media. I think we're at over 5 million copies of books worldwide, and I see lots of pictures online of kids with my books. But they don't seem to be the kind of people that want to engage in the same way as with science communication. I think with science communicators, you know, people follow them on social media because they want to learn cool facts and hear from their favorite educator. Whereas you know, people that buy baby books, I think, you know, I can attest they have a different set of priorities. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your work has been wonderful, and again, we have so many authors that are on here today. And so, Shelli, I want to go to you next. There's a lot of amazing ways that we connect with folks in the science communication arena at the Space Foundation. So, as our COO, how are you working to get people into the space industry? Because for you, it's not just one particular group. You're interested in how can we get everybody involved, and you know, it's one of the best parts about the job that we do.
Well, thank you, Ron. It's an honor to be joining you as well as the other esteemed colleagues today to talk about this important subject of how do we break down barriers to allow more access and opportunity into the space economy. And that includes, as you said, STEM jobs, but also non-STEM jobs, artists, business administrators, entrepreneurs, as well as STEM professionals. And so it's important at the Space Foundation that we go through our 5-step workforce development roadmap. And that involves awareness, access, training, connecting, and mentoring. And each one of those steps allows us to break down barriers to allow more access into the space economy. And so it's exciting to be part of that. And this falls under our Center for Innovation and Education at the Space Foundation. And that's all about creating workforce development and economic opportunity so all individuals can participate in the space economy, especially as we look at the space ecosystem growing from over $400 billion to $1 to $3 trillion. We need to find a way for those who have not been part of the space ecosystem to find a pathway in.
And so there's another organization that you've been working with closely this year. Well, one of a few, I guess I should say, and that's Space for Women. And it's been an incredible group. I've met a lot of wonderful people through that program. You introduced us to it. We were sharing it out on social media, so lots of new friends this year. But how is Space for Women playing a role in building the next generation in STEM and STEAM?
Well, again, thank you for asking that question. The UN Office of Outer Space Affairs created the Space for Women program, and under that is the Space for Women Mentor Network program. And I am one of 35 mentors around the world that participate in that. And there are other men and women that participate in the program. And our goal, again, is to create that access and opportunity so that girls and women around the world can find their way into STEM careers, but also the overall space economy. And again, that relates to STEM careers, but also entrepreneurship opportunities. Great opportunity in developing countries that are emerging into the space economy for women to be part of the ecosystem using space-based technology to start a business, to help their family, to help their community. So when we look at the space-inspired economy, we have to remember those entrepreneurs that may be taking and utilizing space technology to create a business. When you think about GPS, most people don't think about the $1.3 trillion economy GPS has unlocked since 1983. So as you think about the space economy, think about those other areas, the Internet of Things, 5G, miniaturization, advanced manufacturing, data analytics, cybersecurity. Those are all great jobs right here on Earth that can be unlocked by entrepreneurs. And if you're looking for a great idea to unlock through entrepreneurship, NASA has a wonderful website for tech transfer, patents they have from the space program. ESA, the European Space Agency, also has one. So again, we want you to look at those STEM careers. We want you to be artists. We want you to be entrepreneurs. So there's never been a better time than to be part of the space economy than right now.
I couldn't agree more. Dr. Reut, want to go to you next on this. With all the amazing work that you do, one of the big ones is DMARS. That's how we connected some years ago when we did our interview for the Mars Society and Red Planet Radio. So quick plug there for over there. I just want to make sure they get a smile in too. But you've really been doing amazing work with that. So I want to first have you share what that is for folks that may not know. If they don't know, they may know some of the U.S. Based simulations. But what you all are doing over there is amazing work, and how that really matters in communicating the science, because analog missions are truly something special. And same, a bit of the same too with what Kellie and I do with citizen scientist astronautics program like Project Possum. You get out a whole lot more to regular folks when they realize that regular folks can do these types of things. So definitely want to talk to you a little bit about your work there.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I have co-founded together with a group of people DMARS, which is Desert Mars Analog Ramon Station. I've been the scientific director, and I also been an analog astronaut out there in the desert, in the Israeli desert, in the Ramon crater, which looks and feels like Mars. And we've realized that we have a very unique natural resource at our disposal that we can use in order to bring as many people as possible into science, and specifically into the space sciences, into the beautiful age of the golden age of exploration of space that we are now at. And I'm very happy that that initiative took off. And we have several analog missions. As a science director, I had to build up my team in order to make sure all the different tests, all the different experiments, how would they work, how to explain them to the PR people and to students who come and look at our work. We had international and national collaborations. We had almost 3 experiments per day for on average on an analog mission. And just recently, I was able to actually publish a peer-reviewed article on a scientific experiments I did myself with the team there about cross-contamination issues in a planetary mission. So the beauty of this is that we're using this platform as to make people understand and come, and even we choose certain individuals which are happy to put their time into it and training into it. And we are very happy to let them understand in their bones what it means to be in an isolated planetary habitat. And you have to do all these experiments. You have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your crew. It's usually 6 to 8 people inside a habitat. You have a delayed communication. So we're doing this analog simulation thing, but we're really, at this stage, it's just the beginning. We're really open to a lot of people and ideas. And what we find out is that we find that people are really hungry for this kind of a thing. Even though now, because of COVID, there's a bit of a delay in all our operations, even though we do them in isolation, it's a different type of isolation than what the regulations are now requiring us. But for instance, we're going to have an international collaboration with the Austrian Space Forum. They're coming this October, November to Ramon crater to do a full-on mission from the Austrian Space Forum, and they have a much more massive, experienced platform. They're going to use something which is called exploration cascades. And what I found out is that in being a science communicator, you know very well that there is a huge gap that you need to jump over in order to get people understand what it means to do science and what is it good science. It's really not that easy. And when you have such a beautiful platform, just like the suborbital flights, I imagine, and other things as well, you need people to engage physically, mentally, and emotionally in doing a little bit of science outside in their own world, and then they can understand what it means to do science. In addition, because I'm there and other people there, we do a lot of we promote a lot of women activity within that platform, because we want to see more women in sort of like role models and doing science and doing engineer. Israel, even though it's quite innovative in some aspects, in other aspects, it's very religious, it's very conservative. Most women talk about how it's happy to be at their house, at their home, having children, raising a family. It's very hard for us to get people out of their comfort zone and talking about different things like, okay, but if you could work and live in space, what would you like to do? And this kind of a platform let people play a serious role. It's a serious analog mission, and they understand they can do other things as well, and they spread it inside their communities. And it's just it's a blessing to be part of such a project. So that's the DMARS, yes. I do other stuff other than that.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about that, what you do at the Davidson Institute for Science Education.
Right.
How are you reaching out to folks there? How are you communicating the science? How did you get involved with the Institute? Tell us all about it.
So I got involved with the Institute through Professor Oded Aharonson from the Planetary Sciences. He introduced me to the Davidson Institute because they didn't really have a really good handle on space sciences, and they needed someone who had a PhD in that area, who was a good communicator, who can help their staff in order to spread out the word. So basically him, and then another person who wanted me to help him write and create an astrobiology-centered module inside a big program which we call the Young Astronaut Academy. Now, the Young Astronaut Academy, it's funded by the Israeli Space Agency. It's for junior high, sort of like 15-year-old, and we train them a year and a half as astronauts without the suborbital flights, unfortunately, but we are able to get them out to the field and do a lot of interesting stuff in the field as well as space sciences. And eventually they do an analog mission. So I think it's the only place in the world where junior high school students do analog mission. You train them for it. They do it without a supervision. There is an adult, but it's like 50 meters, 100 meters away from the habitat. And they need to come up with the experiments, with their schedules, what they're going to eat, what they're going to drink, what they're going to do if there's like some sort of an emergency, what are the communication lines, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of responsibilities, but on the way they do the science as well. And like I said, it's a great way to teach them about the science that they're being taught, whether in classes or through our program. So in the Davidson Institute, I help them with different space issues that they need some help or advice or someone to communicate with, and also with this Young Academy program, which now I am the manager of it, but in the south of Israel. So I moved the program to the Arava and Dead Sea Science Center, which is a regional area. I'm much more interested in bringing space exploration to the periphery, both the social periphery and both the regional periphery. It's usually areas which don't get a lot of funding. They're very widespread. A lot of towns are isolated a little bit from one another. I know it sounds crazy because Israel is so small, but trust me, there is an isolation issue down south. And you also get a lot of different population. You get Bedouins, you get Arabic, you get people from Ethiopia who came to Israel 20 years ago. And then you get also a lot of people from kibbutzes and moshav and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting for me to try and do space exploration and put it to the next generation, basically, but do it in the south of Israel, where it's closer also to the Negev, to the Ramon crater. It makes the whole area so much more valuable for the people who are actually there. So that's part of also like bringing in the pride in your place and understanding what an amazing place it is, because it's like Mars. You can do space tech analogy. You can try different experiments, different technologies, whether it's in agri-tech or biomonitoring, and you can show them that they're worth something. So it's a very interesting area to do the Young Astronaut Academy down in the south, and we have one more year to go, and this has been a very challenging year for us, and we had to shift part of our teachings completely online, which was trickier than I thought, but we're happy to say that they will have an analog mission, and I think it will be a very interesting, like one in a lifetime experience for junior high, for high school students, really one in a lifetime. So I'm very happy to do that. And aside from that, I'm doing a little bit of research as well, from astrobiology, extremophiles, and also very interested in cross-contamination issues, and to understand if we have a planetary crew and they go into a new area, let's say the moon, and we're not expecting anything to grow or happen on the moon, but what happened with all the microbiota and stuff that the crew comes with. We are not sterilizing our spacecrafts anymore, so some bacillus, some other stuff do survive. They go there. What happens to them? Do they undergo mutation? Do they spread somehow to the environment? Do they survive there? How long does it take for the spreading to occur? What happens when you have back cross contamination back to the crew? Does it affect their health? Yes, no, we don't know yet. It's just, preliminary studies. So that's what we're doing at the moment. That's what I'm doing.
It's incredible work, really, from all of you. So what I want to do as we wrap up here is give each of you 60 seconds, a little bit of your own advice on what you would want to let people know about being a science communicator, how you can be involved and what you can do, and then also where we can find you on social media. So Diana, I'll go with you next, and then Shelli, I'll go to you after that. You are muted, Diana.
Sorry, guys.
What had happened was
I said it was really great to have you here. I got introduced to new people, which is really exciting. My advice, if you want to be a science communicator, is try to find a niche, something that is special to your own brand, because at the end we are brands and we are trying to do something that represent us and our personalities. And just don't be afraid to start. Usually the start is the most difficult thing to do. Trying to stay consistent is also very difficult. But when you do something that you're very passionate about, that passion is going to show. And that's what people are going to be attracted to. You can find me on the Arabian Stargazer on Instagram. You can also email me any questions you have on the ArabianStargazer@gmail.com.
fantastic. Thank you, Diana. Shelli, we'll go to you next. Same question.
Well, thank you again, Ron. It's been an honor joining this esteemed panel today. And what I would recommend is, if this is something you're passionate about, find a mentor. There are many mentoring programs out there. We mentioned one, the UN Space for Women. There's Women Tech Network. There's SGAC. There's so many others. So find a mentor and also be a mentor, because you can be a mentor at any point in your career to help inspire the next generation. The other thing is build your network. If this is not an area you're familiar with, or you're learning about being a science communicator or the space industry, start to reach out to those organizations I just mentioned, not only to find a mentor, but to start to connect with other individuals that think like you, that are excited about the things you do, and start building connections and collaborations so that you too can rise up and help the next generation. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and also you can follow the Space Foundation and go to our website at spacefoundation.org. Again, thank you, Ron, and thank you to our wonderful panel.
Thank you so much, Shelli. And next, Chris, want to go to you. I mean, yours is a little bit different how you've done it. So tell us, the best way you think that people can reach out, and what was a calculated risk can end up being a good one. So what's your advice there?
Sure, yeah. So you can find me, and my handle is below there. It should be on Twitter, and you can reach out via Twitter, or that's my email, my web address as well, csferrie.com. I guess my advice would be practical advice would be to write everything down. So, I had the idea for quantum physics for babies long before I ever tried it out, and probably if I hadn't written it down and at least sketched out what I was thinking at the time, it never would have happened. And if you're anything like me, then you'll forget. And the worst thing is that you'll remember that there was something you were supposed to remember, and you'll think, what was that thing? I know there's something, but I can't remember it. So write everything down, put it in a folder, whatever, and go back to it on a regular basis, and you'll pick out an idea, and something will have coalesced, or you'll meet someone that in your network, and that's when the genesis of the idea will really start.
Wonderfully said. Reut, we'll go to you next.
Hi, thank you very much. All I have to add is be the shaman of your community. Be the scientific shaman of your community, especially during pandemic time or other anxiety time. It's good that you know the science. Just start with your own community from the ground up. Don't flourish all over the place. Find what you're passionate about, do the scientific work behind it, and work with your own community. That would be the best blessing that you can bring. Thank you. You can find me on Facebook and on LinkedIn and on Twitter as well. Thank you.
Awesome. And Kellie, you literally just wrote the book on it. So
yeah, it's funny. When I think about this question, I think about how I used to feel so self-conscious when someone would call me an influencer or, allude to a large social media footprint. But in reality, it's the advice that I would give anyone starting out, especially in an industry like this, because what is that? It's to have a platform is to have a voice, and to have a voice is to have influence. And after a decade of whiteboards and war rooms, I've learned that the people who are designing the technology hold the power to influence how it's applied. And in a high-tech, high-stakes industry like ours, like aerospace, it's in everyone's best interest that you cultivate this broadest perspectives and broadest possible set of voices to attack those complex problems of the future. And, just to close out my thoughts on it, what really drives me to keep sharing, keep inserting myself in the conversation is when we talk about space exploration, we're really talking about the future of the entire human species, right? So, the stakes are too high for any single demographic to be steering the entirety of Spaceship Earth or steering the conversation or direction. So I especially encourage a wide variety of folks to find their voice in the conversation and start putting their thoughts out there.
I told Kellie, I think it was during the Humans to Mars Summit, that I was going to pay her to teach me to speak that articulately all the time. Listen, this panel has been wonderful. Thank you all so much for coming on and joining us today. Your insights are invaluable. And so we are going to move on to the next panel, but thank you to everybody. So
thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Been so wonderful to have you. All right. We'll see everybody on the next one.
Ciao, ciao. Love,
Stay
love.
safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.